The training hall was silent. 300 soldiers from 12 different species stood in perfect lines. They watched as 3 humans walked toward the raised platform where the officers sat. Kang Taeho walked in front. He was 28 years old, with calm eyes and steady hands. Behind him came Yoon Hana, a combat medic who had seen more blood than most doctors. Last was Baek Joon-ki, the youngest at 25, a communications specialist, who kept looking at the alien officers with nervous eyes. They were the first humans to reach this level. The Galactic Coalition's Advanced Survival Assessment was the hardest test in known space. Only the best soldiers could try it. Only the strongest could pass it. And until today, no human had ever qualified. Commander Velthos watched them approach. He was Rithian, a tall reptilian creature with 4 arms and cold yellow eyes. His scales were dark green, and when he smiled, his teeth looked like knives. He did not like humans. Everyone knew this. So, Velthos said, his voice filling the hall, the humans have come to play with real soldiers. Some aliens in the crowd laughed. Others stayed quiet. The Pelori soldiers, small insectoid creatures with large eyes, watched with curiosity. Their sub-commander, a being called Neelix, tilted his head as he studied the humans. Taeho stopped at the platform and saluted. His face showed nothing. No fear, no anger, just patience. We are ready for the assessment, Commander, he said. Velthos leaned forward. Are you? Do you know what this test requires? 7 days in the Vareth wilderness, Hana answered. Her voice was clear and strong. No rescue unless we activate emergency beacons. Survival by any means necessary. Correct. Velthos stood up. He was almost 3 meters tall, and he used every centimeter to look down at the humans. But there is more. This year, we return to the old ways. No modern equipment. No weapons. No scanners. No survival kits. You will have only what nature provides. A murmur went through the crowd. This was new. This was dangerous. Joon-ki swallowed hard. His hands were shaking slightly, but he kept them at his sides. Each species, Velthos continued, will receive their traditional tools. The Rithians will carry ceremonial blades, as our ancestors did. The Pelori will have their pheromone markers. The Kelvani will bring their hunting stones. He paused and looked directly at Taeho. But humans have no traditional tools registered with the Coalition. Your species is too new, too young. You have nothing. The message was clear. The humans would enter the deadliest jungle in the sector with empty hands. Hana's jaw tightened. She recognized what this was. Sabotage. The officers wanted humans to fail. They wanted to prove that humanity was not ready for leadership positions in the Coalition. This was not a fair test. This was a trap. She opened her mouth to protest, but Taeho raised his hand slightly. She stopped. Understood, Commander, Taeho said calmly. We will manage. Velthos blinked. He had expected anger. He had expected the humans to complain, to demand fairness, to show weakness. Instead, this human just accepted it, like it was nothing. You understand? Velthos asked. Yes, Commander. No modern gear. We find what we need in the jungle. 7 days. We understand completely. Drill Master Gorath, a massive gray-skinned Kelvani who had designed the test, leaned toward Velthos. Perhaps they do not realize how difficult this will be, he said quietly. The jungle of Vareth 7 has killed trained soldiers with full equipment. Without tools, they will not last 2 days. Velthos smiled his knife-tooth smile. Then let them learn. The transport ships left 1 hour later. Each team was dropped at a different location, kilometers apart. The humans were taken to the deepest part of the jungle, where the trees blocked out the sun and the sounds of predators filled the air as the ship flew away. Junki looked around at the dark forest. Massive trees rose like towers. Strange plants covered the ground. Something screamed in the distance. "We are going to die," he said quietly. Hana checked their surroundings. They had nothing. No weapons. No food. No shelter. Just the clothes they wore. "Maybe," she said. "But not today." Tejo was already moving. He walked to a large tree and began examining the bark. He pulled at some fibers, testing their strength. Then he looked up at the thick vines hanging from the branches. "What are you doing?" Junki asked. "Looking for rope material," Tejo answered. "My grandmother used to say that humans survived because we could make tools from anything. We do not need claws or fangs. We need hands and brains." He pulled down a long vine and began stripping it. The fibers inside were strong and flexible. "The officers think they hurt us by taking away our technology," Tejo said. "But they forgot something important. Humans lived for 1,000,000 years without technology. Our ancestors survived ice ages, floods, famines, and predators bigger than Telani warships. They did it with rocks, sticks, and rope." Hana smiled slowly. She understood now. "They did not handicap us," she said. "No," Tejo agreed. "They sent us home." Back at the academy, Sub-Commander Neelix watched the drone footage from the human drop zone. The other officers had already stopped watching. They were certain the humans would activate their emergency beacons within hours. But Neelix kept watching. He had read reports about Earth, the human homeworld. Scientists called it a death world. The gravity was crushing. The weather was violent. The animals were deadly. And somehow, humans had not only survived there, they had conquered it. Now he watched as the human called Tejo began making rope from plant fibers. The technique was simple but effective. In 30 minutes, he had created several meters of strong cord. Neelix had never seen anything like it. His own species, the Pelori, had developed technology to avoid physical labor. They had machines for everything. The idea of making tools by hand was almost forgotten. But these humans remembered. Their bodies remembered. Their hands moved with ancient knowledge, passed down through countless generations. "Interesting," Neelix said to himself. On his screen, the humans began building something. A shelter, perhaps. Or a trap. He could not tell yet, but one thing was becoming clear. These soft-looking creatures from the death world were not going to die easily. They were not going to give up. They were going to fight with every skill their ancestors had learned. And that, Neelix realized, might be more dangerous than any weapon in the galaxy. The night came quickly on Varith 7. The temperature dropped. Rain began to fall. Somewhere in the darkness, large animals began to hunt. And 3 humans, with nothing but their hands and their ancient knowledge, prepared to survive. The rain came down like a wall of water. It hit the jungle so hard that the sound was like thunder that never stopped. Within minutes, the ground became mud. Small streams became rushing rivers. The temperature dropped until the air felt like ice. Tejo worked faster. His hands pulled at the plant fibers, twisting them together with movements that felt older than memory. Right over left. Pull tight. Right over left. Pull tight. The rope grew longer and stronger with each twist. "The rain is getting worse," Junki said. He was shivering badly. His uniform was soaked through, and his teeth were clicking together. "We need shelter now." "I know," Tejo said calmly. "Hana, did you find the broad leaves?" Hana came through the trees, carrying an armful of huge green leaves. Each one was bigger than her torso. "These should work. They feel waxy, so water might roll off them." "Good. Start layering them," Junki, help me with these branches. They had found a spot between two large trees where the roots created a natural foundation. Teho had already placed several thick branches across this gap, creating a basic frame. Now he used his handmade rope to tie everything together. The knots he used were old. Ancient, really. His grandfather had taught them to him when he was a boy, during camping trips in the Korean mountains. His grandfather had learned them from his father, who had learned them from his father. The knowledge went back further than anyone could remember. Will this hold? Junki asked as he handed up another branch. It will hold, Taho said. These knots have been tested for thousands of years. Our ancestors used them to build homes, boats, and bridges. Trust the rope. Hana began laying the leaves across the branch frame, overlapping them like scales on a fish. Water ran off each leaf and down to the ground below. Layer by layer, the shelter took shape. Higher, Teho said. We need to be off the ground. There are things in this jungle that hunt at night. I saw tracks near the stream. Big tracks. They raised the platform until it was almost 2 meters above the mud. It was hard work. Their muscles burned. Their hands bled from pulling rough fibers. But slowly, the shelter became real when it was finished. They climbed up onto the platform. The leaves above their heads kept the rain out. The raised floor kept them away from whatever moved in the darkness below. It is dry, Junki said with surprise. It is actually dry up here. Now we need fire, Hana said. We are too cold. If we do not warm up soon, we will get sick. Teho nodded. He'd been thinking about this. Fire was harder. Fire required friction, dry materials, and patience. In this rain, dry materials seemed impossible. But then Junki spoke up. I might know how, he said quietly. My grandfather used to tell me stories about the old ways, about how Korean people survived in the mountains before there were matches or lighters. He showed me once when I was young. Show us, Teho said. Junki climbed down from the shelter and began searching under the thick canopy where the rain could not reach. He found dry bark, dead grass, and a straight stick. He also found a flat piece of wood and a curved stick. Back under the shelter, he set up what he called a fire bow drill. The flat wood went on the ground. The straight stick went into a small hole carved in the flat wood. The curved stick, with a piece of rope wrapped around the straight stick, would spin it back and forth. You spin the stick fast, Junki explained. The friction creates heat. The heat creates smoke. The smoke creates ember. The ember creates fire. He began working the bow. Back and forth. Back and forth. The straight stick spun in its hole. At first, nothing happened. Then a little smoke appeared. Then more smoke. Hana gathered the dry grass close. Teho shielded everything from stray drops of rain. He kept going. His arms burned. Sweat mixed with rain on his face. But he did not stop. He thought about his grandfather, about all the grandfathers before him, about millions of years of humans making fire in the darkness. Suddenly, there was a tiny red glow in the wooden hole. An ember. Now, Junki breathed. Very carefully now. He transferred the ember to the dry grass. Then he began to blow. Soft, steady, more oxygen, more heat. The grass began to smoke. Then it caught. Yellow flame appeared, small but real. They fed the flame with small twigs. Then bigger sticks. Then proper branches. Soon they had a real fire burning on a flat stone in the center of their platform. The warmth was like a miracle. They huddled around it, feeling life return to their frozen limbs. You did it, Hana said to Junki. You actually did it. Junki stared at the flames. His hands were shaking, but not from cold anymore. My grandfather would be proud, he said softly. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the jungle. A Rithian team was in trouble. Commander Velthus's nephew, a young officer named Drath, huddled with his teammates under a fallen tree. The rain poured through gaps in the wood. The cold cut through their scales. They could not get warm. "Use the ceremonial blades," one of them said. "Cut more branches. Build better cover." But the blades were made for ceremony, not work. They were sharp but fragile. When Drath tried to cut a thick branch, the blade chipped. "This is useless," Drath hissed. "We need real tools. We need technology." His teammate looked at him with scared eyes. "We have nothing else. What do we do?" Drath did not have an answer. His species had relied on technology for so long that they had forgotten how to survive without it. Their claws were strong, but they did not know how to build. Their teeth were sharp, but they did not know how to make fire. They had evolved past such primitive skills. At least, that is what they had always believed. Now, in the cold and the dark and the rain, they began to understand the price of forgetting. Back at the academy, Drill Master Gorath watched the drone feeds with growing confusion. The Rithian teams were struggling. 2 had already activated emergency beacons. The Pelori teams were doing better because their pheromone markers helped them find each other, but they had no shelter and no heat. Only the humans had both. Gorath zoomed in on their camp. The shelter was crude but effective. The fire was small but steady. The 3 humans sat around it, talking quietly, even smiling sometimes. They looked comfortable. "This is not possible," Gorath muttered. "They have nothing. They should be dead or dying." Sub-Commander Neelix stood beside him, watching the same feed. "They do have something," he said. "They have knowledge. Old knowledge. Look at how they move, how they work together. Every action has purpose. Nothing is wasted." "They are just primitives," Gorath said. "Lucky primitives, are they?" Neelix asked. "Or are we the primitives now? We forgot how to make fire. We forgot how to build shelter. We forgot how to survive without machines. But they remember. Their bodies remember. Their hands remember." Gorath did not answer. He just watched as on the screen, the human called Teho added another branch to the fire and said something that made his teammates laugh. They were warm. They were dry. They were alive, and the night had only just begun. By the 3rd day, the humans had changed the jungle around their camp. It started small. Teho built a simple trap near the stream, using bent branches and rope to create a snare. Hana found a path that animals used to reach the water and placed the trap perfectly. By morning, they had caught a small creature that looked like a rabbit with 6 legs. "We need to preserve the extra meat," Teho said as Hana cleaned the animal. "We cannot eat everything at once, and we do not know when the next catch will come." "Smoking," Hana said. "My mother used to smoke fish during summers at the coast. We build a small chamber, fill it with smoke, and hang the meat inside. It will last for days." Junki, who had become more confident after making fire, helped build the smoking chamber. They used branches, leaves, and mud to create a small box near their fire. Inside, they hung strips of meat over smoldering green wood. The smoke was thick and smelled strong, but it worked. Within hours, the meat had dried and darkened. It would not spoil. "One trap is good," Teho said. "But we need more. Different types for different animals." He spent the next day teaching his teammates. They built deadfall traps using heavy rocks balanced on trigger sticks. They built fish weirs in the stream using woven branches that let water through but trapped anything swimming. They built simple pit traps covered with leaves. By the 4th day, they had food coming from 5 different sources. "How do you know all this?" Junki asked as they checked the fish weir together. Te-ho pulled out 2 fat fish and put them in a woven basket Hana had made. Before I joined the military, I taught wilderness survival. But most of what I know came from older people. Books, stories. Humans have been writing down survival knowledge for thousands of years. Every mistake, every success, every trick that kept someone alive. We pass it down. My species does not do this, Junki admitted. The Pelori I have met say the same thing. When they discover new technology, they throw away the old ways. They do not keep the knowledge. That is their weakness, Tejo said. Technology can fail. Technology can be taken away. But knowledge stays with you forever. On the afternoon of the fourth day, they heard something moving through the jungle. It was not an animal. The steps were too regular, too careful. Hana grabbed a sharpened stick she had made. Tejo moved to higher ground. Junki stayed near the fire. 3 figures appeared through the trees. Pelori. Their insectoid bodies were covered in mud and scratches. One of them was limping badly. Another had a wound on its thorax that leaked blue blood. They stopped when they saw the human camp. Their large eyes went wide. "Please," the lead Pelori said. Her voice was weak. "We saw your smoke. We need help." Hana lowered her stick. "What happened to you?" "Night hunters. We had no shelter, no fire. They attacked us while we slept." The Pelori looked at her injured teammates. "We have walked for a full day. We did not know where else to go." Tejo came down from his position. "Bring them to the fire," he said. "Hana, check their wounds." "We are competitors," the lead Pelori said with confusion. "The test says we should not help each other. If you help us, you gain no advantage." Hana was already examining the wounded Pelori. "Sit down and stop talking. I need to clean this wound." Using water from the stream and plants she had identified as having healing properties, Hana treated the injuries. The wound on the thorax was deep but not fatal. The limping Pelori had a broken leg segment that Hana set and wrapped with strips of bark and rope. While she worked, Tejo brought the Pelori food: smoked meat, fresh fish, and some roots that Hana had determined were safe to eat. The hungry aliens ate quickly, barely believing what was happening. "Why?" the lead Pelori asked. "Why help us?" Tejo sat across from her. The fire crackled between them. "On our world, we have a saying. Today I help you. Tomorrow you might help me. Or you might help someone else who will help someone who will eventually help me. It does not matter. Survival is not a competition. It is cooperation. But the test measures survival," Hana said, finishing her treatment. "It does not say how we must survive. If helping you means we fail, then the test is wrong, not us." The lead Pelori was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke. "My name is Vila. These are my teammates, Peck and Mora. We owe you our lives." "You owe us nothing," Tejo said. "Rest, eat, gain your strength. Then decide what you wanted to do." That night, 6 beings sat around the fire instead of 3. Vela told stories about her homeworld, a planet of endless swamps where her species had evolved. Junki told stories about Korean folklore, about clever peasants who outsmarted powerful lords, about kind strangers who were rewarded by spirits. They were enemies by the rules of the test. But in the firelight, they were just survivors sharing warmth. Before Vila and her team left the next morning, she told the humans something important. 3 Rithian teams have been evacuated, she said. Medical emergencies. Commander Velthus is furious. He expected humans to fail first. Instead, you are thriving, and his own people are dying. Is he going to change the test? Hana asked. I do not know. But be careful. He's not a fair being. He may find other ways to hurt you. Tejo nodded. Thank you for the warning. Vila looked at the human camp one more time. The shelter, the fire, the traps, the smoking rack. All built from nothing. All created by 3 soft creatures with no claws, no scales, and no natural weapons. You know, Vila said slowly, I always heard that humans were weak. That you came from an easy world and had no real survival skills. What do you think now? Tejo asked. Ela made a sound that might have been a laugh. I think whoever said that never saw humans with their backs against the wall. I think your world was not easy at all. I think it was a furnace, and you are the metal that survived. She bowed her head, a Pelori gesture of deep respect. Then she and her teammates disappeared into the jungle. That evening, back at the academy, Sub-Commander Neelix requested access to the historical database. He wanted to learn more about Earth, about humans, about how they had survived on a planet that seemed designed to kill them. What he found kept him awake all night. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Volcanoes that blocked out the sun. Predators with teeth longer than Pelori bodies. Diseases that killed millions. And through all of it, humans had survived. Not through technology, which they developed late, but through cooperation, adaptability, and shared knowledge. They had outlasted creatures bigger, stronger, and faster than them. They had spread across every environment on their planet, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. They had eaten everything, built everywhere, and never, ever stopped learning. They are not weak, Neelix whispered to himself, staring at the data. They are the opposite of weak. They are what happens when a weak creature refuses to die. On his screen, the humans were building something new. It looked like a smokehouse, but bigger, more organized. They were creating infrastructure, not just survival tools. They were building a home, and they still had 3 days left. On the morning of the 5th day, Tejo woke before sunrise. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, in his skin, in the strange pressure behind his eyes. He climbed to the highest point near their camp and watched the sky. The clouds were moving fast, much faster than normal. They were dark, almost black, and they came from the east like an army marching to war. Below. The animals were behaving strangely. Creatures that normally hid were running in the open. Birds flew in confused circles. Even the insects had gone quiet. Hana climbed up beside him. What do you see? A storm, Tejo said, but not a normal one. Look at how the leaves are moving. Look at how the pressure feels. This is going to be very bad. How bad? Tejo remembered stories his grandmother had told him about typhoons hitting the Korean coast, about winds that tore buildings apart and waves that swallowed villages, about survivors who said the sky itself had turned against them. As bad as it gets, he said. They had hours to prepare. Maybe less. Tejo gathered his team and explained the situation. We cannot stay here, he said. This shelter is good for rain, but not for this. The wind will destroy it. The flooding will cover everything. Where do we go? Junki asked. I found caves 3 days ago, higher up in the hills. Rock does not break in wind. Rock does not flood. We move everything there and ride out the storm. They worked fast. Hana gathered all their food, their rope, their tools. Junki carefully preserved the fire by creating a bundle of slow-burning embers wrapped in wet leaves. Tejo studied the path to the caves, planning their route. Before they left, they heard a sound in the sky. An aircraft. Looking up, they saw a coalition shuttle descending through the darkening clouds. Evacuation, Hana said. They are pulling everyone out. The shuttle landed in a clearing near their camp. A hatch opened, and a voice called out through speakers. Human team. By order of Commander Velthos, all candidates must evacuate immediately. A Category 5 storm is approaching. Survival outside shelter is considered impossible. Report to the extraction point now. Taeho looked at his teammates. What do you want to do? We have prepared, Hana said. We have a plan. We have caves. The test is 7 days, Junki added. He was scared. Anyone could see that, but his voice was steady. We have come too far to quit now. Taeho nodded. He turned toward the shuttle and raised his voice. Human team declines evacuation. We will complete the assessment. There was a long pause. Then the speaker crackled again. Human team, confirm that you understand the danger. Winds will exceed 200 kilometers per hour. Rainfall will cause catastrophic flooding. All other teams have already evacuated or are being extracted now. Understood, Taeho called back. We will manage. Thank you for the offer. Another pause. Then the hatch closed and the shuttle rose into the sky. It disappeared into the dark clouds, heading back to the academy. They think we are crazy, Junki said. They think we are dead, Hana corrected. Let us prove them wrong. The march to the caves took 2 hours. The wind grew stronger with every step. Rain began to fall, first as drops, then as sheets. The jungle shook around them like it was alive and frightened, but they kept moving. Taeho led the way, finding solid ground where there was solid ground, finding handholds where there were handholds. Hana helped Junki when the wind nearly knocked him down. They worked as one unit, one organism, moving through the chaos together. The caves were exactly as Taeho remembered. Deep, dry, and protected by rock on all sides. The entrance was narrow, which would block most of the wind. A small stream inside provided fresh water. Hana said as they stumbled inside. At least for now. They set up camp quickly. Junki unwrapped his fire bundle and, with shaking hands, coaxed the embers back to life. Soon flames danced against the cave walls. Hana organized their supplies. Taeho blocked the entrance with rocks and branches, creating a barrier against the coming storm dawn. Then they waited. The storm hit like nothing any of them had ever experienced. The sound was the first thing. Wind screaming through the jungle like 1,000 wounded animals. Trees cracking and falling. Water rushing across the land in walls of brown destruction. Through the gaps in their barrier, they could see flashes of lightning that lit the world in bright white. Each flash showed more destruction, more chaos, more proof that nothing could survive out there. But inside the cave, they were safe. The rock protected them. The fire warmed them. The barrier kept out most of the wind and rain. I am glad we did not take the shuttle, Junki said during a quiet moment. Really? Hana asked. Yes, I was scared at first. I am still scared. But we built this with our hands. We found this place with our skills. We survived because of what we know, not because someone saved us. That means something. Taeho smiled. Your grandfather would be very proud. Outside, a tree crashed somewhere close. The ground shook. But inside, the fire kept burning. Ha-Na began telling stories to pass the time. She talked about her childhood, about learning medicine from her mother, about the first patient she ever saved. Junki talked about his time at communication school, about the friends he made, about stupid jokes and late-night study sessions. Then Taeho talked about his grandmother. She survived a terrible flood when she was young, he said. Her entire village was destroyed. She lost her parents, her home, everything. She was alone in the mountains for 2 weeks before rescuers found her. How did she survive? Junki asked. The same way we are surviving now. She built shelter. She found food. She made fire. She did what humans have always done. She refused to give up. And she taught you? She taught me that humans are not strong because of our bodies. We are not fast because of our legs. We are not dangerous because of our teeth. We are all of those things because of our minds. Because we remember. Because we learn. Because we pass down knowledge from one generation to the next, so that every human contains the wisdom of every human who came before. The storm raged outside. Inside, 3 humans sat around a fire, just as their ancestors had sat around fires for 1,000,000 years. Different planet. Different dangers. Same stubborn refusal to die. At the academy, the officers watched their screens go dark one by one. All drone signals are lost, a technician reported. The storm is too strong. We have no contact with any teams. Commander Veltha stood at the window, watching the distant lightning flash on the horizon. The storm had spread across the entire moon. Nothing could survive that. The humans will be dead by morning, he said. When the storm passes, send recovery teams for the bodies. Sub-Commander Neelix said nothing. He just stared at the screen where the last image from the human camp had been captured. 3 figures entering a cave. 3 soft creatures from a death world, walking calmly into the fury of nature. He had a strange feeling that the commander was wrong. Humans, he had learned, were very difficult to kill. Morning came slowly. The storm took 12 hours to pass. 12 hours of wind and rain and destruction that reshaped the land itself. When dawn finally broke, weak sunlight fell on a changed world. Trees lay flat across the ground. Rivers had moved to new paths. Small lakes had appeared where none had existed before. And from the mouth of a cave, high in the hills, smoke rose into the quiet air. 3 humans emerged, stretching tired muscles and blinking in the light. They had survived. The recovery shuttle found them on the morning of the 7th day. It descended through clear skies onto a hillside that had been destroyed by the storm. Trees lay everywhere like fallen soldiers. The ground was still soft with mud. The pilot expected to find bodies. Instead, he found 3 humans sitting around a small fire, cooking breakfast. Recovery team to Academy, the pilot said into his communicator. Human team located. They are alive. All 3, uninjured, requesting instructions. There was a long pause on the other end. Then a voice replied. Confirmed, recovery team. Wait for transport authorization. But Tejo stood up and waved at the pilot. We do not need transport, he called out. We will walk back. The pilot stared at him. Walk? The academy is 15 kilometers away. The terrain is destroyed. We know. We will walk. Hana packed up their supplies. They had more than they needed. Extra rope. Preserved meat. Medicinal plants she had gathered. Containers of clean water. They loaded everything into packs they had woven from plant fibers. Why walk? Junki asked as they started down the hill. Because we can, Tejo said. Because walking in is stronger than flying in. Because every step shows them that we are not just survivors. We are victors. The journey took 4 hours. They crossed flooded streams. They climbed over fallen trees. They passed through destruction that would have killed any other team on the first night. Word spread through the academy. The humans were coming. On foot. Carrying supplies. When they finally approached the main gate, soldiers from a dozen species lined the path. They had come to see the impossible. They had come to see the creatures who had refused to die. The Pelori team was there. Vela stood at the front, her wounds now properly treated. When she saw the humans, she raised her arm in a salute. Other species followed. One by one, soldiers who had evacuated in the storm showed respect to the team that had stayed. The humans walked through this crowd with quiet dignity. They did not celebrate. They did not show pride. They simply walked as if this was the most normal thing in the world. Commander Velthus was waiting at the academy entrance. His 4 arms were crossed, and his yellow eyes were cold with anger. You abandoned the evacuation protocol, he said, as the humans approached. This is a serious violation. I should disqualify you immediately. Taeho stopped in front of him. The evacuation was optional, Commander. Your own transmission said, candidates must report to the extraction point. It did not say candidates must evacuate. A technicality. The test was survival for 7 days. We survived for 7 days. Every requirement was met. Velthos leaned closer. His knife teeth showed in a threatening smile. You think you are clever, human? You think surviving makes you special? Many species have survived in difficult conditions. That is true, Commander. But how many survived with nothing? Before Velthos could answer, a new voice spoke. The human is correct. Everyone turned. Drill Master Gorath walked forward. The massive gray-skinned Kelvani had designed the survival test. He had expected humans to fail. He had been certain of it. Now he stood between Velthos and Taeho. The test measures survival, Gorath said. The humans survived. More than survived. They thrived. To disqualify them would be dishonorable. It would make us look afraid of their success. Velthos's eyes narrowed. Gorath, you cannot. I designed this test. I say who passes. And the humans pass. Sub-Commander Neelix stepped forward as well. I have documentation of their full experience. Video evidence before the drones failed. They built shelter, made fire, created tools, caught food, treated wounded competitors, and weathered a storm that defeated every other team. Their performance was exceptional by any standard. More officers joined. The evidence was too clear. The humans had won fairly. Velthos looked around at the growing opposition. He saw that he could not fight this without looking like a coward. His jaw tightened, but he stepped back. Very well, he said coldly. The humans passed the assessment. They are certified for leadership positions. He turned and walked away without another word. Later that evening, Gorath found Taeho alone on a balcony overlooking the jungle. The Kelvani stood beside the human in silence for a long moment. I must ask you something, Gorath finally said. I designed that test to be impossible without modern tools. I removed every advantage, every aid, every piece of technology. How did you do it? How did 3 soft creatures survive what would have killed armored warriors? Taeho looked out at the jungle. The damage from the storm was still visible, but already plants were growing back. Life was returning. You took away our technology, Taeho said. You thought that would hurt us. But technology is new for humans. We invented it only a few thousand years ago. Before that, for 1,000,000 years, our ancestors survived with nothing but their hands and their brains. He turned to face Gorath. Every skill we used in that jungle, every trick, every technique we learned from those ancestors. The rope, the fire, the traps, the shelter. All of it was passed down through countless generations, parent to child, teacher to student, survivor to survivor. But surely that knowledge is lost? Your species has technology now. We kept it. In books, in stories, in traditions, in the memories of old people who taught young people who taught younger people. We never threw away the old knowledge because we knew that one day we might need it again. Gorath was quiet. Then he said, My species forgot. We developed technology so long ago that we do not remember life without it. We could not make fire with our hands. We could not build shelter from branches. We could not survive as you did. Then perhaps, Taeho said gently, it is time to remember. The certification ceremony was held the next day. Taohana and Junki received their leadership badges in front of the entire academy. They were the first humans to earn this honor, but more important than the badges was what happened after young soldiers from other species approached them with questions. How do you make rope? How do you start fire? How do you build shelter? How do you survive when everything is taken away? The humans taught them. Just as their ancestors had taught each generation, they now taught new students from across the galaxy. As they left the ceremony, a young alien recruit approached nervously. She was Pelori, small and delicate, with eyes full of wonder. "Is it true?" she asked. "Your home world, Earth, it really tried to kill you? Every day?" Hana smiled. She remembered the stories her mother told her, about typhoons and earthquakes, about predators and diseases, about a planet that was beautiful and deadly in equal measure. "Every day," she said, "the weather tried to freeze us. The sun tried to burn us. Animals tried to eat us. Diseases tried to stop us. And every single day, we found a way to survive. But how? How did you keep going?" Hana looked at Teiho and Junki, her teammates, her friends, her fellow survivors. "Because giving up was never an option," she said. "Because our ancestors looked at a world full of things that wanted them dead, and they said no. Not today." And they kept saying it day after day, year after year, generation after generation, until they had conquered every challenge their planet could create. She put her hand on the young recruit's shoulder. "That is what it means to be human. We do not win because we are the strongest. We do not win because we are the fastest. We win because we refuse to lose. We win because we never forget. We win because when everything is taken away from us, we reach back 1,000,000 years and find the strength of every human who came before." The young recruit stared at her with new understanding. "And now," Hana said, "that strength belongs to the galaxy. Anyone can learn it. Anyone can use it. All you have to do is remember that survival is not about what you have. It is about what you are." That night, fires burned across the academy. Not in heating units or power cells, but real fires, built by hand from gathered wood. Soldiers from a dozen species practiced the old skills, learning what their ancestors had forgotten. And somewhere in the hills, watching the lights of the academy below, 3 humans sat around their own fire. They talked about home. They talked about the future. They talked about all the things they would teach and all the people they would help. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They had seen soft skin and small teeth and no claws. They had seen weakness. Now they saw the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was the thing that survived when everything else died. Humanity was 1,000,000 years of learning how to refuse death. Humanity was rope and fire and shelter and traps and knowledge, passed down through generations like sacred treasure. The officers had said no modern gear. The humans had smiled and said thank you, because modern gear was new, but survival was ancient, and survival was what humans did best.